It looks like the stage is set for the presidential election of 2024. Who are we voting for? We don't talk about it today. Welcome to the To Be the Church podcast, where we explore what it looks like to truly be the church in today's culture. Just got a text from Ben that said, I'm not feeling great right now. So, you guys want to do it without me? I said, all right, we're good. So,
all right, man. Here we go. No Ben.
Yep. All right, so we were sitting here trying to figure out what we want to talk about on our... How many episodes have we done this? Are we over 400 yet?
441, I think.
441 episodes of this. So sometimes like, do we have anything to talk about? But some big stuff happened this week in the presidential race.
Primaries.
News. Yep, and so let's... you said you had an angle that wouldn't make me want to stab myself in the face. So why don't you take us there?
Yeah, well, no, I think we're like, the election is set. So the campaign really begins in force. I mean, if you've been, which I know you haven't been, Tyler, but if you've been tracking this close as a listener of the To Be the Church podcast, you've probably seen the writing on the wall for quite some time that the matchup, the battle royale between old Trumpster and old Biden was going to be back at it again. So here we are. It is March 7th. Well, when you're listening to this, March 8th. But there's nothing new under the sun, dude.
I feel like we've done this before.
We have, 4 years ago, which I think most of us have blocked out 4 years ago from our mind, not necessarily even the presidential election, but it was 2020, that epic year. And dude, March, right? March was when it all hit. So we won't go that direction. But yeah, so I was thinking about this just today or yesterday and about the To Be the Church listener. And they know that going back, sorry, Cody, what was it? 400 episodes?
440.
440 episodes over, what, Tyler? 8 years-ish? 9?
Sounds right.
That we, in our weekly podcasts here, that we have never, what's the word? We've never endorsed a candidate, And when we get, so we've been through 2016, 2020, and now we go into 2024. And in the middle of all those two, you had 2018, 2022, midterm elections, other elections. And we've talked politics at times when there's questions, but we've never endorsed a candidate. And we've also been pretty cagey about voting, right? Or about how we vote, right? Like we've never been like, I vote for this guy or anything, Not only have we not endorsed, but we've also not, say who we vote for or whatever else, right? So why do we do that, Tyler? Why is that we don't endorse? What would you say?
Yeah, well,
I know there's a lot of politicians out there looking for the official To Be the Church endorsement, knowing
they want to wrap this thing up.
There could be dozens of votes in the Vancouver, wider North Portland metro area for them to get through our endorsement. But why do you think it is that we have been so cagey about that?
Yeah, well, I think,
or maybe intentional.
Yeah. The reason, the biggest reason, is because that's not what we care about most deeply. Yep. And so, let me just make a really silly example. I can't really think of a good one, but I'm sure there are good ones. But like, let's say that like you just had it in your mind that everyone who drinks Pellegrino was just an idiot and had that's the stupidest thing you could do. And so like, obviously that's a silly one, but like by me drinking a Pellegrino, like you're not going to listen to anything else I say. Yeah. Now I think it's, in a similar way, but I mean, in a way more serious way, people look at politics that way. Yep. And I have nothing to learn from someone who is a Republican, Democrat, would vote for that person,
That's the way people would think.
Yeah, that's the way. Yeah, that's the way people would think. And so, knowing that politics is charged at that level, where San Pellegrino is not charged at that level. If you're listening, by the way, I have one in front of me. I didn't just like come up with that drink out of
random.
Yeah. But like I could never trust someone who votes that way.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's like, do we need? I mean, we have 440 episodes of us talking about stuff, like a lot of really important things. Some not so important.
I was gonna say,
but
there's a little bit on the other side of the ledger too.
But do we want to like it? Like the gospel is so important that why would we shut off 49 to 51% of our potential audience, and not just for a podcast, but for the gospel.
Yeah.
And the sake of the gospel. That's why I won't do it. Like,
yeah.
know.
Yeah. And it's interesting because that's what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. I would have articulated it almost exactly
with
that
the Pellegrino.
way. Not with the Pellegrino, but you think about it, and to take that metaphor even further, like sparkling water. So for the Pellegrino sparkling water, for the sparkling water aficionados out there that are like, man, they research it, they live it, they drink it, they bathe in it. I mean, it's everything to them. They would look at that and they'd say, dude, you're drinking that versus Perrier? Like, what the heck, right? And so again, that's a superficial metaphor or analogy that we're using there. But with politics, now, politics is much more important than sparkling water, but here's that's like here's another analogy with it. Politics versus sparkling water. We would say probably, I don't know. Would you say politics is as important as sparkling water? Would you be like, nah?
I like my sparkling water. I'm just kidding.
But dude, what the gospel is, the gospel makes politics look like sparkling water, right?
Yeah.
And now, dude, the gospel certainly has an effect it has an effect in politics, in the sense that, like, this idea that Jesus reigns, that Jesus is king, was a tremendously political statement tremendously powerful political statement in the first century when they were saying Caesar is king, right? And so Jesus is king is a very powerful political statement in all cultural contexts and generations and for all time, right? And so also I do think, I don't ascribe at all to the political, like in this certain moment in American politics, I don't ascribe to like vote for Jesus and don't vote, and it's like there are those out there that what's his name, Preston Sprinkle, kind of the exiles in Babylon type thing, and I haven't gone super deep into what he teaches there, but it almost feels like just a there's kind of another angle he's trying to look at it from, in the sense of maybe being less engaged, because it's like, dude, whatever, it's Babylon, right? And I definitely would not argue for that. I would argue for informed political engagement, voting, being informed, being connected on the local level, state level, federal level, understanding the issues, voting your conscience, all that kind of stuff. But even at the same time, the gospel, it's the good news for all humanity for all time. And so this political moment in America is like I just think of Isaiah, right? The nations are a drop in the bucket, and so this is one political moment, and certainly I want to be good stewards of it in the moment. But the way that sparkling water is so almost just a joke compared to, like, for what people feel about politics, the gospel is that much greater than politics in our specific political moment. And so we don't want to lose a hearing with, like you said, 51 to 49, whatever. Yeah, we're in a 50-50 country. And I don't think, Tyler, I think, like, just the people that I know who are on different sides of the political spectrum, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, like, you're not going to lose a hearing necessarily if you were to talk about who you voted for or whatever, because, like, they can handle, like, having a relationship with and even listening to or respecting people from other sides. There's definitely a good portion of people in our country kind of not on the polar extremes. The polar extremes that, I don't know, that's an arbitrary question, I guess, but the polar extremes are probably at least 25% on each side, probably, you'd say.
I feel like it's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
I feel like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it didn't feel that.
Yeah.
It felt like, oh, well, like you're making a straw man out of what 3% of people are.
Uh-huh.
And now it feels like you're making not the straw has thickened.
It's like Pinocchio becoming a real boy.
Yeah. Because I do think that, and I mean, just the there's so many reasons why this is, but
Yeah.
like the customization of personal media,
Yes.
is huge in this. I was just talking to my daughter, who, like, I have this older car. Actually, you sold me this older car.
Oh, yeah.
And like my daughter wants that car really bad when she starts driving.
No kidding.
And so I told her, I was
Thing's
like,
gonna live forever.
I was like, hey, I'll put like Apple CarPlay in it, so you have all that. She's like, no. I want the old radio. Like I want, but we were talking about like how back in the day, like if you wanted to watch a TV show, you had to watch it at 9 p.m. when it was on.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to hear a song that you didn't own, you had to listen to the radio until it came on. And so we were just talking about that a little bit. But that is so now narrowly focused to anything, but specifically people now. I was talking to somebody the other day who was talking to me about all the podcasts they listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, now if you can handle a liberal one, like I do like This American Life, but everything else I listen to is very conservative. That's from something. It's like we've personalized that so much in everything, but it's had a massive effect on the political landscape. Yeah.
So for the whatever it may be, I wonder if it's. I don't know that the majority of either side is in a place where they would be intolerant. In fact, I mean, there's actually polling out there on the Democrat side and the Republican side, and the percentage of those who are Democrats who say they don't, that they think Republicans are evil or that they won't give them a hearing, versus the percentage of Republicans that feel that way about Democrats. And you do see a disparity on either side, but I don't think it's the majority of either side, but we do know that there are a portion of people, and not simply, I'm not even worried necessarily about the people in our church, but there are a percentage of people who we would have a hearing with that you could lose that hearing if you went that direction on a candidate or on anything like that. Now, that doesn't mean. So what am I saying here? I'm not saying we don't. I'm not saying we can't talk politics or any of those type of things. And I do think there are some clear realities in our culture today that we need to speak to very definitively from the scriptures that bleed into the political realm, because pretty much everything is politicized these days. And so, but when it comes to party identification or a specific candidate or those kind of things, we are very intentional about that. And it's not a bit. It's like it actually is a conviction that we would say, like, we don't want to lose a hearing for the gospel by that dynamic, right?
Another angle from it is, I was thinking about this because there was a pastor in California who I follow on social media who he on Wednesday, I think it was, posted his personal voter's guide. And it was like, hey, church, here's how I'm voting. Just wanted to let you know. Now, we've kind of taken it from the angle of people on the opposite side might not listen to you, or people on your side might, platform you. But the angle I just thought of, which is how I felt, is I'm going to now look at everything that pastor says through the lens of politics are really important to him. And maybe even like, I wouldn't go so far. I'm not saying like politics are king, but it's like, if I ever listen to a sermon from him, I will think like, is he going to spin this in a way that politicizes it and like makes his viewpoint, his political viewpoint, like platformed. And so like, even from somebody like me, who's like I'm not going to look at somebody who's voting one way or the other and not listen to them, but just the fact that he platformed his own voter's guide was like, oh, so he's that type of guy.
Yeah. And the job of that we have on the To Be the Church podcast, the reason we started this, the reason we do this, is to equip the church to be the church, right? Like, what's our intro again? It's like where we talk about what it means
I got to start at the beginning. Truly. Welcome to the To Be the Church, where we explore what it looks like to truly be the church in today's culture.
You had to grab the truly can just to get yourself there. And so
I'm a creature of habit.
But that's the thing. So as we're talking about this, and now Tyler, this is certainly based upon our consciences, right? And our consciences are not identical, yours and mine. But it's funny that I threw that question out at the very beginning, and we didn't talk about this beforehand. In fact, you were like, "What should we talk about?" before we started recording, and I was like, "Oh, dude, I kind of have an angle on the presidential." And you're like, you said something like,
"Do we have to?"
or you said, I feel like you also said something to the effect of, is it an angle that's not going to make me want to shoot myself?
Oh, I said that when I started recording. Yeah.
So, but I think like I think but even if I would say, and the listener could probably pick this up if they listen to enough, they know that I'm more of the kind of political junkie than you are. Like, I'm definitely a lot more engaged in the narratives and a lot more into, I mean, even the podcasts I listen to, like it's, I listen to Potomac Watch, okay, which is the Wall Street Journal's editorial board podcast. It comes out 5 days a week, and it's 26 minutes long, and they talk about the latest issues from Congress or whatever else. So,
wow.
Yeah, and so that's the podcast that I don't think you listen to, Tyler.
Never even heard of it.
so these are just kind of more news, academic type of podcasts on the political side of things, and so I stay pretty engaged in that on a personal level, just trying to educate myself and being in the know, and I enjoy it actually. And there is an aspect to it that's a little bit of, I heard somebody say recently that like they take politics too seriously for it to be entertainment for them, but there is and it's kind of a dark humor, but like there's a little bit of funniness right now in our political sphere, that you gotta go like, at the end of the day, you can it is, in the same way that like a tragedy can be a little bit darkly comedic. That's kind of the American political scene right now, is pretty darkly comedic. But yeah. So, and I find the more I study it, the less I get more dispassionate for it. I get less like whatever. But yeah. I just think that, as I was saying, this is the end of a very, very long run-on sentence. That even though you and I are engaged on a different level in that narrative, you said exactly what I would have said. And that's why I just think, going back 8 or 9 years with this To Be the Church podcast, our conscience on this is aligned in that way to what the priority for you and I is as pastors of this local church. Like, it is to equip the church to be the church, but the centrality of the gospel, the necessity of the message of Christ, and the flourishing of his people in the mission of the gospel is what is most vital to us. And that's transferable, I would argue, to any nation and any period of time going back thousands of years. Like that, if you take that angle on it, right? Regardless of what's happening in the political scene around you or whatever else, that's transferable. And that, to me, makes it feel rooted in the faith once for all delivered to the saints, rather than a slave to the moment, right? And so I just want to be there. And so as we're trying to equip the church to be the church, I would not say that like anybody listening to this, member of a church, like, you could endorse a candidate on your Facebook, like whatever you want to do, like do it based upon your conscience. And I'm not throwing shade, as it were, on anyone who would do that. But like you said, that the pastor who shares, like, here's who I'm voting for and everything like that, it's a matter of conscience for him, whatever else. And he has convictions to do it that way. I have substantive reasons I would not do it that way. And that's what we're kind of explaining here today.
All right, question. Do you ever, like, and I ask because I have moments where you're like, I kind of wish for just a season I had a different line of work so that I could talk more freely about certain things. Yeah. Not freely, but more publicly, maybe. Like I look at some people's like Facebook posts, not necessarily about politics, I don't care so much, but like about other things, and I'm like, oh, like I think if I like wasn't shepherding a ton of people, like I would engage that conversation, or argue
or
back.
If you were 15 years younger.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But like, it's like, oh, like if I was like a financial advisor, I would totally argue with that.
Yeah.
Right now, you know what I mean?
No, I don't know, man. Maybe when I was younger, I might have like wanted, like I could see, but yeah, I do know what you're saying. Like but it's been years since I've thought about that though. That like to engage on that level. So no, I can't say that like that I do think about that a whole lot. But I am very, and you know this, and we are this way with our staff too here at NGC. Like we're very, very conscious about how we engage in the social media sphere
Mm-hmm.
and those kind of things, just because it's like for the same reasons that we're talking about here. It's like, you know, be the church and so be. Dude, I feel like, and going back to what you said about Molly wanting the radio, like, don't you feel like there's a pendulum swing back for that younger
Yep.
generation?
Totally.
Like, could it be that like in 15 years, none of the social media stuff exists because the generation coming up is like so done with it? They just, I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, I think.
There's always hoping.
Well, yeah, I think that the teeth that social media like digs into you
Yeah.
is really strong.
Yeah.
And so I think even people who don't want to be overtaken by it, like, can be if they engage at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Going back
But-
to an analog world, maybe.
Yeah. That'd be nice. A little J. Kim action.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote the book Analog Church. Anyway. All right. Well, there's our first political episode of 2024. The first of many, I imagine.
Ask us questions.
Yeah.
Ask us questions and we'll answer them.
Yep. All right. So, yeah, we'll see you next Friday. Hit us up, podcast@tobeTheChurch.com. Have a great week.